Good morning. Hi, welcome to Prelude to Ulysses, where we are reading books for fun out loud. Everything is loud, bowed, proud, crowd, throwed. Cows. All right, let's get started. Currently we're reading the Popol Vuh, the sacred book of the ancient Chichicastenango. We're not going to read a whole bunch today because I'm going to see Bela Fleck again and Abigail Washburn. Just let's make it an easy one. At 20 minutes, that's tops, okay? So last part of the intro, we read Chronicles of the Indians, which I don't think was a good name for that chapter. I think it should have been called A Bunch of Spaniards Reflect Upon Stories About a Book. Like it's a bunch of conquistador douchebags that decided to, let me try to say this better. It's the recounting of conquistadors and the priests that followed and their interactions with ancient Mayan tribes from the Yucatan Peninsula to Guatemala. And that there was frequently similar books throughout Central America, and that they kept finding some acidic coffee. They kept finding similarities, or it was the same book, or it was this book, Popol Vuh, and there was like other books too. I think there's more. If you're just joining us, poor decision, and I have not the greatest memory. So down here, it says Norman. I don't know why. All right, let's get going. So this is part 2 of the introduction to the Popol Vuh. It's the Manuscript of Chichicastenango. I don't remember I think that's a place. The manuscript. Okay, so part 2. The Manuscript of Chichicastenango. Man, I killed it! I'm not the best speller. Okay. Sorry, I need to get something to drink. I just drank a bunch of coffee. I don't know if I poured too much coffee in there or let it sit in the percolator for too long, but it's pretty extreme, I tell you. Let's get some natural light in here. Ooh, my back hurts. Okay. Usually there's not so much sorry, this is a podcast for children, I decided. Some horsing around. Usually I know exactly what I'm doing, and I do it. Just kidding. The manuscript in which Father Francisco Ximenez found in his parish at Chichicastenango ranks highest among the documents composed by the American Indians. After they learn the manuscript ranks highest among the documents composed by the American Indians after they had learned to write in their own languages by means of Latin letters, which the Spanish missionaries had taught them. What does he mean, ranks highest? Like, what's the scale? What's the thing? Out of what? Most legible? Most, like, what does that mean? It's fun to ask questions. Its author was undoubtedly one of the first students who learned from the friars the marvelous art of phonetic writing. Beautiful. Wow. Wonder what that means. He wrote it in Spanish? Well, So no, he learned Latin letters and sounded out his own language with those characters. That's cool. I mean, phonetic writing. Yeah. The Chike chronicler knew that in olden times there was a book which contained the traditions and accounts of his people, and knowing them perfectly, he had the happy inspiration of recording them. Oh, I love coconut water. Ginnet and Chilbaz. I don't remember their names coming up before this. Believe that it is a translation of a manuscript written in hieroglyphics, and declare that no other Maya Chique document can be compared with it, from their Historia de Pupes Mayaquiches. Bancroft also believed that the Popol Vuh was the translation of a literal copy of a truly original book, written by one or more Indians of that race in the Chique language, using Latin letters after the occupation of Guatemala by the Christians, and that this copy had been made to replace the original book after the latter's loss or destruction. Well, obviously this copy was made by a dude that worked with... Oh no, Father Ximenez found it. What? I thought Father Ximenez assisted someone in the fanatic. Okay. So he just found it and was interested in it. That's cool. After the occupation of Guatemala by the Christians, and that this copy had been made to replace the original book after the latter's loss or destruction. So they don't know who or when or why this original document came from. I don't know. I hope we get in. That's interesting. To replace the original after the destruction. He adds that all of the American people, the Chique of Guatemala, have left us the richest mythological heritage. From his book, The Native Races, Chapter 3, page 42. Professor Max Mueller, in an excellent summary of this work, classifies it as a literary composition in the truest sense of the word, an exposition of the mythology and history of the civilized races of Central America. He believes that it is an authentic document which occupies a very prominent place among the works of the Indians composed in their own language, using the characters of the Latin alphabet. That's cool. He adds that, so if you were to first translate this phonetic, the phonetic translation in, you would have to know their language. Gosh, that seems complicated. Composed in their own language using the characters of the Latin alphabet. So it occupies a very prominent place among the Indians. Among the works which the Indian... Okay, so there is a bunch of books. This is one of them that Professor Max Mueller, who knows who the fuck that guy is, believes. So, I don't know. Once again, it's kind of weird to read a book like this that seems like a lot of their information are from Genet Chibels, some fucking Frenchies, and Max Mueller from probably Belgium or wherever that place is. Belgium, Maine? Okay. He adds that in it the author recounts from memory the incidents and fables which he heard as a child, and that to pretend to take from these memories a consecutive history is simply impossible. Agreed. The author of the manuscript says that He writes it because now the Popol Vuh, or the original Book of the People, as Ximenes calls it, is no longer to be seen. We have no facts by which to identify this original book other than those which the unknown author gives. Nevertheless, from the knowledge that we have of the American Indian system of writing before the conquest, it seems doubtful that the ancient Chique book could have been a document of set form and permanent literary composition. What's set form? Permanent literary. Rather, one must suppose that it might have been a book of paintings with hieroglyphics, which the priests interpreted to the people in order to keep alive in them the knowledge of the origin of their race and the mysteries of their religion. So, well, maybe that will make a little more sense once we actually get into the meat of this in 63 pages. But it sounds like the words don't quite jive with the history in several ways. Lewis Spence. All these name drops. Who knows who Lewis Spence is? Anybody? Lewis? Lewis Spence. Lewis? Okay. Lewis Spence observes that at the time of the conquest, writing among the Indians was in a state of transition, and that a version of the Popol Vuh written in a set literary form could not have been in existence for long. And that is more likely that it was passed on by word of mouth, a way of preserving literature which was very common among the people of ancient America. God, books are the coolest thing in the world. Books are the coolest thing in the fucking world. Before the invention of writing and printing, all the people of the world were accustomed to preserve their legends and traditions by oral transmission. It has been related how the Indians of Mexico had the youth of their race learn the famous orations of their great men and commit to memory the outstanding events of their history. I mean, when I was a kid, that was still something that happened. I don't know. I tried to get a haircut today, but they're full. And they're like, "Get out of here, you homeless guy." And I was like, okay, I'm going to read instead. Okay. It has been related how the Indians of Mexico had the youth of their race like, oh God. Okay. Furthermore, in America, as in the old world, we were troubadours who preserved the national spirit with the evocation of the glories and legends of old time. What does he mean by the old world? I want to see when this was written. When was the introduction written, you think? I don't know shit. Oh, this says that Popol Vuh, the sacred book of the ancient Chique Maya, is volume 29 in the Civilization of the American Indian series. What? Gotta read those other 28 first. Shh. Okay. The Manuscript of Chichicastenango. Is this the man? I'm confused as to whether this is the Popol Vuh that they're discussing. Don't worry, someone else probably knows. The Manuscript of Chichicastenango has no title. It begins directly with these words. Right, so this is the beginning of the old traditions of this place called Chique. Here we shall write and we shall begin the old tales, the beginning and the origin of all that was done in the town of the Chique by the tribes of the Chique nation. Now let's take a step forward. We're gonna go to the actual book and see if that's how it actually starts. Chique. Here is the beginning of the old traditions in this place called Chique. Yep. Oh, cool. Oh my God, there's so many footnotes. Don't get off on footnotes, bro. It's like mostly footnotes, buddy. Okay. And 2 paragraphs further, the same narrator says, "This we shall write now within the law of God and Christianity. Oh. We shall bring it to light because now the Popalva, as it is called, cannot be seen anymore, in which it was clearly seen the coming from the other side of the sea, and the narration of our obscurity, and our life was clearly seen. The original book, written long ago, existed, but its sight is hidden from the searcher and the thinker." That one went over my head. So, initially, the Popalva explains itself in a way that I would consider quite a Western thesis. I don't know. I haven't read much literature from other countries. Well, I have. Not from... it's all cracker reading. What's the word for that? Looks like I would just read white dude stuff. Yeah. Just white guy stuff. The Familiar? That's a white guy stuff. Neil Stevenson? I don't know. He's probably white. Tom Robbins is white as shit. Cormac McCarthy? He's white. Frank Herbert? It's gotta be a white. Philip K. Dick? White dude. Carlos Lozada. I don't like that book, though. J.C. Dugard? Oof. I have her book. I'm nervous to read it. Ooh, Winston Churchill. Oh, no, white guy. Umberto Eco. Hey, shut the fuck up, man. Why would you... What were you doing? What was that all about? Doesn't matter. So... Oh, yeah, Western. So, I don't know whether a thesis to a religious text is necessary or is normal. What other religious text do we have? Be Here Now, does that count? Yeah, it tells you what this was. I should read this too. Our story. There are 3 stages of this journey I've been on. First, the social science change. The second, psychedelic. And the third, the yogi. Okay, I mean, that's the thesis. All right. Any more religious books you got, buddy? Just the Bible, and that sucks. Hagakure, I didn't read the intro to that. Okay, we'll continue. I'm sorry. It's just, first it says, hey, this is the name of the place called Chique, which indicates kind of an outsider perspective from my idea. Because if I was writing about my people, my family, my guess is that the Chique people were isolated in some sense. Or my immediate instinct is to believe that all major civilization hubs, of which the Chique is one, would think of themselves as the center of the universe, right? And therefore, like in the Bible, instead of saying something like, this is the story of the people of Egypt or wherever the fuck they are, I have no idea, say this is the story of the people, right? And that's what I would think this would start out. But instead, it starts out very clearly saying that it is about the Chique or Quiche. I don't know how it's pronounced. I'll look it up one day. I promise. And the tribes of the Chique Nation. It's a very outsider perspective is what I'm reading from that. And then it says, we shall write now within, and it's kind of bowing down to the conquistadors immediately. We shall write now within the law of God in Christianity, capital G God, we shall bring it to light because it can't be seen anymore. Because the Popova, as it is called, cannot be seen anymore. I don't understand what they mean by that. It cannot be seen. It cannot be seen. Maybe it cannot be translated in the ways that it was previously, verbally, or maybe in this hieroglyphic, pictographical format that it describes it potentially existing in at one point in time. So it cannot be seen anymore as a religious text. It cannot be processed anymore as fact. That might be how I want to take this. In which it was clearly seen, so the Popova, as it was called candidly, in which was clearly seen the coming from the other side of the sea and the narration of our obscurity and our life was clearly seen. So this is within the book of the Popova. It knew that something else was coming. That thing that was coming was the knowledge that they were in the dark, the narration of our obscurity, and our life was clearly seen. Why obscurity? The original book written long ago existed, but its sight is hidden from the searcher. Its sight, the sight of the text, the knowledge of the text itself, or not the text, but the Popova is more of a verbal collection of histories, is what I'm guessing. Mostly verbal, maybe pictographical. I don't know if that's a word. Telling of the history of the Chike people. So, although it existed, you can no longer, its sight is hidden from the searcher and the thinker. So, anyone who's searching for God, I'm guessing it means that will not find it in the Popova. It's saying that it's bowing down to Christianity, I think is what it's saying. And the thinker would not, its sight would be hidden from the thinker because it's so deft or something. This seems like a pretty negative start. The truth is, says Ximenes, that such a book never appeared nor has been seen. And thus it is not known if this way of writing was by paintings, as those in Mexico, or by knotting strings, as in the Peruvians? What's that? Way of writing by knotting strings? Let's do that. What? Oh my God. I'm picturing like a SOS, like not. God, you need a lot of string for that. Cool. You may believe that it was by painting on woven white cloths. It's a weird thing. Oh, this is Ximenes' quote. Or by knotting strings as the Peruvians, you may believe that it was by painting on woven white cloths. This was the graphic system in use in Mexico and Guatemala. And Father Sahagún, writing in the 16th century, says that he was informed of the ancient things of New Spain directly by the Indians. He was informed of the ancient things of New Spain by the Indians. And adds that all of the information I obtained they made known to me by means of their paintings. Ancient things of New Spain. I don't know what that means. Maybe the history that was brought to them? What's New Spain? Oh, New Spain is where they were. Okay, Guatemala is New Spain, right? Mexico and Guatemala. That's what they called it. I've not heard that before. I was thinking Spain. The ancient things of New Spain. Okay, cool. Made known to him by their paintings. So, one person says paintings. Again, the influence of the Bible is evident in the description of the creation, although this does not succeed in taking away the indigenous flavor of the Chike book. Yeah, I mean, it's hard. Obviously that it has a Christian infection immediately based on that paragraph before. The one I read. The indigenous flavor of the Chike book. Indigenous flavor. Commenting on the edition of the Popol Vuh by Brasseur de Bourbourg, Adolf Bandelier observed in 1881 that the first sentences appear to be transcriptions of the Book of Genesis and are not aboriginally American. He argues that in the epoch in which Popol Vuh was written, the Indians of Guatemala were already under the influence of the paintings. Epoch is a period of time, I believe. In the epoch, EPOCH, in which the Popol Vuh was written, the Indians of Guatemala were already under the influence of paintings, books, and chants in which the Spanish missionaries used to instruct them in Christianity. Instruct, not the correct word. Brainwash, force feed. Well, I wasn't there. Maybe they needed God. Maybe they wanted it. Maybe they liked it. Probably not. Maybe they were dressed like they needed it, like they wanted it. Probably not. I'm sorry. I wanted to read the Bible to like religious people more, and it's not happening. I'm liking them quite a bit less. It's okay, though. Is it? I don't know. The native author expressly declares in the preamble of this work that he is writing under Christianity. The editor of the Spanish translation of the French text of Brasseur de Bourbourg has carefully noted the concordance Concord ants. Every day I love her just a little bit more, and she loves me the same. Concordance. Agreement, concord, harmony. In concordance of the membership. Number 2, an alphabetical index of the principal words of a book, as of the Bible, with a reference to the passage in which each occurs. Number 3, an alphabetical index of subjects or topics. Number 4, in genetic studies, the degree of similarity in a pair of twins with respect to the presence or absence of a particular disease or trait. Cool. So we're going to go ahead and probably take an assumption that it's number 2, an alphabetical index of the principal words of a book. Now let's reread that sentence. The native author, the Spanish, the editor of the Spanish translation of the French text of Brasseur de Bourbourg has carefully noted the concordance of its first chapter with the book of Genesis. Boom! We're learning stuff. In concordance with... Oh. I already forgot what it meant. Cropples. With the book of Genesis. Max Mueller had previously, 1878, referred to certain similarities between the Popol Vuh and the Old Testament. I fucking don't want to read more to Old Testament. But although admitting that there was biblical influence in the book, he believes it must be recognized that his content was a true product of the intellectual soil of America. Bandelier arrives at the same conclusion in another place, where he says, commenting again on the Chike book, it appears to be, for the first chapter, an evident fabrication or at least accommodation of the Indian mythology to Christian notions, a pious fraud. Pious? Sorry, guys. I don't know what pious means either. Every day I learn another word to forget, and it's gonna be fun. I don't know the alphabet. I need a concordance of an alphabet. What am I looking up? Pious. P. Prosthetics, pronunciation, prismatic, previous, present. Dude, there's a lot of purr. A lot of purr up in this. Pierogian? Dumplings with a filling as a meat or potatoes? Oh, that was a pierogi, not a pierogan. Okay, what are we looking up? Pious. It's an adjective. Number 1, having or showing a dutiful spirit of reverence for God or an earnest will to fulfill religious obligations. Oh, that's not what I thought at all. Number 2, characterized by a hypocritical concern with virtue or religious devotion. Sanctimonious. That was what I thought it meant. Sort of. But I thought it meant like hoity-toity, just like rich guy shit. Like fucking Winston Churchill and J.C. Dugard. Number 3, practiced or used in the name of a real or pretended religious motives for an ostensibly good object. A pious deception. Number 4, sacred rather than secular. Number 5, showing due respect or regard, as for parents. It's so fun to learn. Fuck. This went on a little longer than I wanted, but I'm not at a spot I want to stop yet. It appears that the first chapter is a fabrication or an accommodation that connects Indian mythology to Christian notions, which is a pious fraud. I like that. But the bulk is an equally evident collection of original traditions of the Indians of Guatemala. And as such, the most valuable work for the Aboriginal history and ethnology of Central America. Awesome. Thanks, Bandolier. Make me excited again. The Popol Vuh was also the book of prophecies and the oracle of kings and lords Nice. And the oracle of the kings and lords according to a reference which the author of the manuscript makes in another passage, where he states that the kings knew if there would be war and everything was clear before their eyes. They saw if there would be death and hunger, if there would be strife. They knew well that there was a place where it could be seen, and there was a book which they called Popol Vuh. Oh, that's straight up out of the Popol Vuh. It's a quote from this book that we will read. Okay. I gotta keep reading a little bit. And in the final paragraph, the Chique chronicler adds with a melancholic accent that what he has said in his work is all that has been preserved of the ancient Chique, because no longer can be seen the book of the Popol Vuh, which the kings had in olden times, for it has disappeared. Oh man, I can't imagine if someone tried to get me to document anything. I feel like I am worse than most people though at remembering stuff. How and when was the Chique book lost? The author of the manuscript says only that already in his time it was not to be seen, that it was hidden and had been lost. So he never even saw whatever this book. And I feel like I'm gonna take that term not to mean a book at all. I think is the only way to read this. Probably it disappeared in the catastrophe which destroyed the Chique kingdom in 1524. What catastrophe? It is possible that it may have been consumed by the flames which destroyed Utatlan. What? Did I already read that? I probably did. Professor Max Mueller criticized the Abbé Brosseau de Bourbourg for having given the name Popol Vuh to the manuscript of Chichicastenango, and because in translating it into French, he gave it the title. So Max Mueller was mad that Bourbourg named this manuscript that Ximenes found Popol Vuh, and in translating it to French, he gave it the title le livre sacre instead of el libro nacional or el libro del consejo, as Ximenes proposed. The sacred livre. I mean, I'm guessing that's book, sacred book, whatever. Other writers following Mueller's example have repeated these same objections, but the fact remains that the name Popol Vuh has been generally accepted and continues to be used to designate this book of the Chiche. Furthermore, if the words of the preamble of the manuscript, which have been quoted above, are carefully read, it will be seen that they clearly indicate the author's purpose in compiling the document to supply the lack of the ancient book which had been lost. And in this sense, the book written in Christian times or after the conquest may be considered a substitute for El Libro Nacional as a revision and a new version of the accounts which had been preserved in the venerable volume which had already disappeared. I don't know. I'm confused. It says it may be considered a substitute for the Libro Nacional. Is that what the Ximenes had believed was the name of this document beforehand? This author is jumping around, or I'm too dumb to understand what the Libro Nacional is. I believe it is Ximenes is the pre-Ximenes name for the Popol Vuh. We will go with the Popol Vuh because it's fun to say. Which had already disappeared. In the words in which he uses to describe the ancient book, the unknown author of the Chiche manuscript reveals that he knew its contents. Sure, I mean, he wrote it from memory, or made some stuff up. Doubtless, with the aid of his prodigious memory and his brilliant talent as a writer, he could compose a transcription of the tales and ancient traditions of his race that is possibly clearer and even more complete than the original. Okay, sure. No. Maybe some of the I don't know. I don't like that sentence. Because in composing it, he used phonetic writing, which as a medium of expression has an infinite advantage over the hieroglyphics and pictography used by his forefathers. Not so much, because when it comes to pictography, which I was using the right word, and hieroglyphics, it leaves things open for speculation. And I think that's the point a lot of the time, is to speculate, to think, to come up with different ideas, to get everyone's personal vision on a subject, especially something like to do with metaphysics and stuff. Or like religious stuff. And when you reduce something like this painting to words, you're missing a lot. You get my version of that. And this is just a piece of shit painting that I think I stole from a nursing home. It's not that special by any measure, but that's what I have to say. Hear what I just said about that? Not interesting. But someone else might, you wouldn't read a book that I wrote about that painting. Someone else might have a whole different story. What's your point? I think that this comparative language, fuller, better, whatever, it's not really appropriate. A medium has infinite advantage over that. I don't think that's appropriate language for the subject matter. Used as a medium of expression, has an infinite advantage over the hieroglyphics and pictography used by his forefathers. Up for debate. These tales and traditions of the Indians were still common. I mean, advantage, sure, to me and my American understanding, and some girl in France's, or some penguin in Antarctica, all of us it's good for us to have an idea, but that's because we're going to be using our own speculative powers with this text. And it's a game of telephone that has segregated us from the actual fabric of what was probably in the original text or pictographs. I think you're just trying to sound smart. I think you can. Sorry, nope. Okay, got it. These tales and traditions of the Indians were still common among them at the beginning of the 18th century. And Ximenes says that being in the I need to write down when Ximenes was alive and when Borberg was there or whatever. I need things chronologically sometimes because I'm kind of dumb. Whatever. Ximenes found it when? I don't remember. I already figured this out twice and I forget. Ximenes says that, being in the parish of Santo Tomas Chichicastenango at the time, he found that they were the doctrine in which the natives first imbibed, that these tales were still common in the beginning of the 18th century, and Ximenes says he found that they were the doctrine which the natives first imbibed with their mother's milk. I think that's a clever statement. I don't think that means anything besides it was brought to them early in life, and that they knew it almost by memory. He adds that later he discovered that they had among them many of these books. See what books? This book? In the introduction, okay, I'm going to read 3 more paragraphs and we're going to call it good because this is a little longer than 20 minutes. In the introduction to his Historia de la Creación del Cielo y de la Tierra, written in the last decade of the 18th century, Canon Ordóñez y Aguilar says that an Indian who gave him the manuscript of the Probanza de Votan also offered to give him the original of that same history, i.e., the book of the traditions of the Chique Indians, in which Ximenes translated. But because of the death of the Indian, he could not obtain it. So I don't know what the Probanza de Votan is in relation to the Popova, but we'll get there, I guess. As was said before, Ximenes believed that the traditions of the Chique had been preserved in paintings, and that after the Spanish conquest, the Indians had converted them into the Spanish method of writing. Did you believe that they're preserved in paintings, or did you see them, Ximenes? This is also the opinion of a modern investigator, Rudolf Schuller, who argues that the greater part of the Popova, or the ancient traditions, must be considered only as an interpretation of one or perhaps many pictorial writings of the Chique, the originals of which were lost long ago. Abbé Brossieux de Bourbe, who made such a profound study and commentary upon the Manuscripto de Chichicastenango, also believed that this document had been copied in part from the ancient books, and he observed that the compiler, a well-educated man of a distinguished family, had written it in a Chique of the greatest elegance. Here are the words of Brossieux de Bourbe translated into English. All right, well, we're going to read that last part too. Oh my God, we're almost done with this thing. The dryer's still going. Just keep reading. So here are the words of Borberg. The Popelva appears to have been written in part from memory, following ancient originals, and in part copied from the sacred books of the Chiques, to which the name of Popelva, or Book of the Princes, was given. Reading it carefully, it may be seen that a great number of passages have been transposed, no doubt unconsciously by its anonymous author. What does the word transposed mean? This manuscript, the most valuable about the origins of Central America, is written in a Chique of great elegance, and the author must have been one of the princes of the royal family, who composed it a few years after the arrival of the Spaniards, when all of their ancient books were disappearing. I need more water. Oh, coconut water? You guys shake this? Don't say. It don't say shake it. Chichicastenango. Chichicastenango. I guess hold on a second. Take this old records off the shelf. Oh, should we look up that word? This manuscript, the most valuable about the origins of Central America, is written in a chique of great elegance. This indicates that he has heard some non-elegant chique language. Oh, it's so good. I can't drink milk. Well, I can, but it's not a good idea. But there's something about milk that is colder than water of the same temperature, right? It's that cream that really, I want to use the word satiates. I don't know if that's a word though. So it really satiates you real good, right? Satiate. Oh. But coconut water is all I can do. But shit, it's awesome. Oh god. Okay, we got this. So it's well written. So it must have been by a prince. I don't really trust Borberg or I don't. Do you think that the smartest people were always royalty or the richest people? I don't. I don't know. I think it's easier to get. I don't know. I don't know what real information is either. I'll take those old. Okay. Who composed it a few years after the arrival of the Spaniards, when all of their ancient books were disappearing. Concerning the time in which the manuscript was composed, there are two important facts in the document itself which make it possible to determine its date approximately. The first is the visit that the Bishop of Guatemala made to the city of Yucatán, or Gumarca, which place, as one reads in the manuscript itself, which is a place that was blessed by Bishop Francisco Marroquin. Ximenes says that Bishop Marroquin gave Utatlan the name of Santa Cruz de Quicha this is a quote, when in the year 1539 he was at that court and blessing the place, he fixed and raised the standard of the faith. That court being Santa Cruz / Yutatlan / Gumarca, whatever. I want to spell the Gumarca for you. G, which is another name for Yutatlan in Guatemala, I believe. So Gumarcaah, sort of a Middle Eastern. The double A is not frequent in Spanish, I don't believe, or anywhere besides Middle Eastern restaurants in my knowledge. Okay, shh. Don't shush me. The second important fact mentioned above is found in the final chapter of the manuscript, which contains the succession of the kings and lords of the Chique. In it, Tecún and Tepepol, the sons of the kings, burned by Alvarado. The guy Alvarado? Oh, I was thinking of Canon Ordóñez y Aguilar. Who's Alvarado? What a douchebag. Yeah, don't burn people alive. Or dead. No, it's okay to burn the dead. So the Tecún and Tepepol, the son, Tepepol. Do I talk like a white guy? Can you tell? Would you know that I was white? Do you? Am I? Probably. Okay. So in the last chapter, the sons of the kings were burned by Alvarado in 1524 are named as the 13th generation of kings, and Don Juan Rojas and Don Juan Cortes, the sons of Tecún and Tepepo, are named as the last successors to the dignity. And as of the 14th generation of kings, and as of the they are named as the last successors, and as the 14th generation of kings. The later Chique lords were still living in the middle of the 16th century. No, the latter Chique lords were living in the middle of the 16th century. The Oider Zorlita, previously mentioned, don't remember that, I think a king, lived in Guatemala from 1553 to 1557 as a member of the royal audience. And he says that he traveled through the province several times as an inspector and that he met, here's a quote from him, those who were at one time lords of Utatlan are as poor and miserable as the poorest Indian of the village, and their wives made the tortillas for their meal, and they carried water and wood for their houses. The principal one of them was called Don Juan de Rojas, the second Don Juan Cortes, and the third Domingo, were all extremely poor. They left children, all of whom were destitute and miserable. I'd rather a king that fucking is one with the people than fucking Mr. Hoity-toity gold rings. Fuck you, buddy. Oh, I don't know anything about Oider Zorita, but it sounds like a douchebag to me. Maybe come up with some better words than douchebag. You say that a little too much. Kumquat. Let's go back to calling people kumquats. These signatures of Don Juan Cortes, Rey Caballero, and Don Juan Rojas, together with that of Don Pedro de Alvarado, Spaniard judge, captain, and conqueror, appear at the end of the Títulos de la Casa Inquin ni Jaib, Señora del Territorio de Otzoya. Okay, so I'm not going to go into that sentence because I didn't understand any of it. Oh, okay. So it was, why did I say signatures? Signatures, I think what he means is like their inclusion in the tales told by, what's his name, Zorita. All right, this has gone on a little too long. This document appears to have been written many years after the conquest of Utatlan. The signatures of the Chique, okay, so the inclusion, signatures means inclusion of their presence in this literature, in this, I guess diary, what's a good word for it? Laundry's done. I gotta do something, huh? What's going on here? You don't look very good. You don't look, oh shit, it's me. Okay. The signatures of the Chique kings also appear on the Título de los Señores de Totonicapan, executed September 28, 1554, together with the signatures of Don Cristobal Fernández Nahib. The Popol mentions Don Cristobal as the king of Nihaib. That's what I meant to say earlier. Nihaib, who reigned in the presence of the Spaniards. And names his successor, Don Pedro de Robles, Ahau Gelel. This reference indicates that the Popol Vuh was finished after September 28th, 1554. I love you. Under the reign of Don Cristobal's successor. Okay. I don't like reading this part. But just one more long paragraph. Okay. Another Chique document, which belonged to the collection of Brasseur de Bourbourg, and which is now in the Institute for Advanced Study at Princeton, New Jersey, is the Título Real de Don Francisco Isquian, a Pop Galel, dated November 22nd, 1558, I apologize, in which it is definitely said that it is executed by kings of the Chique, Don Juan Cordes Reyes, Caballero, and Don Martin Ahau Chique, whose signatures are at the end of this document. the signatures of Don Juan de Rojas, does not appear on the document. And so it's literal signatures. What document? Oh, okay. Oh, so they all signed this thing that the Oider Zolita wrote? Oh, it doesn't really say, actually. Oh, miserable. All of the footnotes or the, what's it called when you show your work? It's like where you say where you got that info from. There's a word for it. They're all in Spanish, so it's really hard to tell what's a word and what's a name because I don't speak Spanish. All right, you're getting lost, buddy. The signatures of Don Juan de Rojas does not appear on the document, which leads one to believe that he was already dead in 1558 and had been succeeded by Don Martin Ahau Chique, as this change in the situation of the last Chique kings is not recorded in the Popol Vuh. There is ground for believing that the composition of the Manuscript of Chichicastenango had been finished before November 22nd, 1558, and that consequently this famous Chique book was written in between the years of 1554 and 1558. Wow, that's a long time ago. Ooh, the next part's called the author of the Chique of the Popol Vuh. That's a bigger chapter. So it took about an hour, and that wasn't too crazy, was it? I wasn't like talking a bunch of shit. Was I? I don't know. Doesn't matter. So it took me about an hour to read. Oh my God, not very much. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 pages. Okay, that's not too weird. And the next one's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. We'll do the next one shorter. It'll take no time. So, in honor of finishing before an entire hour has passed. Whew. Man, I am enjoying reading that. I feel like I have a really good collection of things I'm reading. As far as not losing interest and still keeping track of what is going on. Ancient Evenings. That's a pretty straightforward narrative. It's fake. No, it's not straightforward. It's fucking psychedelic. It's about a dead guy reliving his life with his grandfather's wiener in his mouth. For rizzle. But it's way interesting. I don't know. It's well written. Norman Mailer, I will read another one of your books. Maybe a shorter one. Do you have a tiny one? Whatever. The Secret History of the World. Legitimately one of the stupidest authors I've ever read. But it's really fun to tear apart. I might be stupid, but this guy seems like a fucking idiot. God, how far did I get last time? I think I threw the book down. Oh no, I just drew in it. It's not the next book I read though. It's Ancient Evenings is tomorrow. Well, I won't be reading tomorrow probably. Oh no, I probably will. I'll have time to read one of these. And I'm reading the Holy Bible, which is just, I am at a point where it's just so fucking annoying. It's so boring. So I'm pretty bored of that. And the Popol Vuh, man. This is currently about Spanish history. I have a concern that when I actually get into the meat of the Popol Vuh, it will fuck with my brain and what I'm reading about the Holy Bible, which is also the Secret History of the World. The Bible's influence on 2 of these books, the Bible's influence on the Popol Vuh is obvious and historical. And the Bible's influence on the Secret History of the World is obvious because Mark Booth is just a turd. No, he's not. He's a person. A person? That's a poop. All right. Fuck, we're over an hour now. All right, might as well read for an hour. Meh. That was fun.